Good afternoon, and thank you all for attending, for staying. I hope you enjoyed lunch, and I know that you enjoyed your breakout sessions. I walked past a couple of breakout sessions and heard such animated conversation. It was wonderful, because that only happens when you're discussing something meaningful and when you care about the topic that you're discussing. So this is our wrap up and review, and a time for you to ask questions of the discussion facilitators, to have the discussion facilitators give you their impressions, because what we don't tell you is we as teachers are students too. We learn. And in every interaction that we have with you, with the class, with a learning situation, we learn something. So to make you feel better, I am going to put the discussion facilitators on the spot and just ask if they would, in a few words, say what this experience was for you. Was it interesting? Was it boring? Did you stay awake? I think you did. And if you don't mind, so feel free.
We were very pleased with our discussion in nursing. The students showed such great insight and depth of thought into the discussion questions, and we were really very pleased at the level of critical thinking. So for those of you that are here, congratulations, you did a wonderful job. You should give yourselves a round of applause.
What struck me is the ability to look at historical context within today's context, and to take that walk back into history, but also to look at current situations, and to think about ethical situations that could happen today, and to have our eyes and ears open and be attuned to that. And particularly with the mantra, but it's a mantra that we discussed towards the end, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And so we all have some of those mantras that we think about from ethical perspective, and to take that with you when you go within your walk of life, whether that is on the floor, any clinical setting, in your work setting, and just to think about that.
Most of the students that were in our group with Professor Burns and myself were social workers, and I thought we had a very interesting discussion, and we focused on societal, institutional, and structural strategies, and who are the vulnerable groups. And in some, the vulnerable groups were not just people of color, but also class, the poor, women, and the elderly. You know, were the different peoples, you know, that could be put upon, you know, and place and context in terms of time. And some of the strategies that the individuals came up with was obviously one of cultural competence in meeting people where they're at, and truly sharing, which I think is what the IRB is talking about in terms of respect, dignity, and making sure that people are not deceived in terms of understanding what they need to do, or what's going on, or what's happening.
So, hi everyone. So we had a lively conversation in our breakout session as well, and it's always gratifying to have full engagement and interactivity across what potentially can be a student-professor type of divide. So it's really great to be able to open things up and have a dialogue, a meaningful dialogue about what are the implications of ethical behavior in conducting research with communities of all sorts, not just communities that are easily identifiable as vulnerable communities. Because I think on one hand, all of us are vulnerable in one way or another. So it's been a lot of fun. Thank you for coming.
Well, I'll go next because Lisa and I were co-presenters, so I'm happy to know that she had a good time because I certainly did. And I was especially pleased to see the importance that people placed on history. So often historians hear a lot about the dead hand of the past controlling our lives today. Is Regina, just let it go. That was a long time ago, let it go. But Lisa and others in our session helped me appreciate the fact that the past is still with us, is very much alive. Now, what do we do about it? Do we sit in judgment of those people who maybe made the best of really horrific situations in the past, just so they could live their lives with some measure of dignity? And now, for us in the 21st century, how do we deal with diversity? With honesty and integrity, and develop a level of trust with those people that we work with in the community, our partners in research. Get people to trust us enough to give us the information that we need to do our jobs with excellence. So it was a great session. I'm so glad we had an audience. I would have stood there for an hour and 20 minutes talking to myself. I feel that strongly about the topic of diversity and honesty, especially as it relates to race and gender.
I would like to piggyback on Regina, since our session, though it wasn't overt at the time, what she said exactly encapsulates what drove the liveliness of our discussion, which was a horror of what has occurred and where that can take us into the future. And we were trying to underscore and understand what happened previously to see how we might move forward from there. And I think I got a greater appreciation for the need to have discussions with those from whom the legacy follows. And so there needs to be this diversity of people in the room so that the white people can hear what the people of color say and the people of color can hear what the white people say, because the perspectives are very different and the energy around the perspectives is also very different. And I was really struck by that, and it was very instructive for me.
Good afternoon. My name is Sam Matthew. I'm from Health Sciences. I also lead I'm in charge of the NeoMed program as well as the PA program. I'll come to that at the end of my small talk. Now, first thing I want to appreciate what Adrian was telling, that we are students. The moment a teacher stops to be a student, he or she is over as a teacher, because they have to be open too. We are learning a lot from you people too. And it was a great experience having you all with us this short moment. It's only 1 hour, but I thought we enjoyed it. Now, what's important is that it's good to have a passionate group of students there. And it's dangerous to have both the sides too passionate. Because I was passionate, she was passionate, everybody became too passionate in the whole thing. It might end up in a boxing ring, okay, but it didn't. But, but at the end of it, it was fabulous. It was great because it inspired quite a few to think, look, I'm going to go deep into it. I'm going to really get into the bottom of this and go deeper into it. And that's precisely what Skloot wanted. And it became a bestseller. It became a bestseller, but that's not what I where, there it is. Okay, that's not what our intentions were. She wanted to really generate the passion in people to question beyond what is really there. Everything is good at this moment, better than what it was in 1951, but it can be even better if both sides are okay with everything. I mean, there is one group which is not so happy. There's another group which is over happy and making big money in the biomedical research areas. So overall, it should be seen in that aspect, to have a balance, a level playing field where everybody is sort of left with some sort of a satisfaction on what is going on. Transparency is a very important factor. Education is a very important factor. So when you look into all these things, it's good to have a dialogue. And right now, this book is initiating a dialogue. That's what it does. It's initiating a dialogue, and we cannot leave it like this. We need to take it beyond that to make it even more better and better, because nothing is actually the most perfect work by anyone, for that matter. There's got to be always a perfection area there open, and we need to look into that. And I thought it was a great discussion that we had. And coming back to my two roles that I played at the team, NeoMed as well as PA, we want more women to get into this profession, the medical profession, because we need the women's perspective there very strongly. And that's why I'm inviting each one of you to get into this profession, the medical profession, where you can really serve a very big role there as women, to serve the women. There is clearly, gender is an important element in this book. And clearly one need to look into it. Vulnerability is important there. There are so many issues there. Gender and vulnerability is going close together in so many ways. So you need to really look into that. Get yourself in. But for the PAs, I tell you, we are still running short of men folks. We need men into the PA, because I have only 3 students in my class every year, which is not good. So there's got to be a balance there. I'm inviting all of you in that area.
And now I'd like to open the floor to questions from the audience. And I know that you have some, because I've paid you to ask questions. No. Questions? Yes, sir.
I'm probably don't need it.
Okay. Okay.
This question is for Dr. T. Dr. T, on the content of the things we discussed today, and what you learned from the newer social workers, how would you go about sort of inserting that into your learning for the students that's coming behind the ones that's going out? Because most of the people that's in your class is about to graduate. Did you get a different insight on your teaching, and which is very good?
Thank you for the compliment. Anyway, yeah, the first time I saw the video, I was teaching human behavior in large systems, and I felt that, and the topic that we were focusing on was societal institutions, and I felt that it would be a good video to show as we talk about societal institutions and human behavior in large systems, because there are multiple institutions that are impacted and influenced, with respect to the video, using the use of media in the theater with respect to helping change in institutions. The medical institution is discussed, the educational institution in terms of the IRB, that kind of stuff in terms of research. And also, when you think about this in a bigger context, it talks about almost every societal institution in the context of social work. In terms of the course that you're currently taking in racism and discrimination, I think it fits, because it obviously fits in terms of the cultural competency and the cultural awareness, which the students had commented about, that the medical profession needs to understand in terms of how different people may communicate, and whether they have eye contact, no eye contact, English as a second language, their gender, and so on, and all the other issues in terms of interpreting and understanding what they're saying. I think I've answered your question in part.
Other questions? Oh no, you're going to force me to be a teacher and call on someone. No? What session did you attend?
I took institutional racism.
Institutional racism? You want to... how did you feel about the session?
The session was good. As Dr. Matthews said, it was very passionate. I'm a very shy person, but we hit on some subjects there that made me transform into, I don't know. But yeah, I like that session. We got a chance to talk about the racism and classism. We also talked about informed consent, and I actually learned a lot about ovarian cancer. He talked about the stages and the pap smears when it came out in 1948. The guy who invented it. We talked about John Hopkins. So I learned a lot. I learned a lot. I don't have any questions, but I learned a lot. Thank you.
Okay, that's okay. Other comments? Other comments, other questions? I'm a woman with a microphone, so you're going to force me to the one person that I know in the audience.
I attended the session on attitudes in gender and race and research, and we also had a very lively discussion. Got a lot of information about the oral histories and kind of highlighted on I can't pronounce the speaker, that was Dr. Jazarowski. He was talking about how important it is to listen, and how doing that, you get a chance to learn, and then that informs your actions and how you interact with people. So it was just kind of continuation of that and other comments that were made in the class. So.
Thank you. Other comments? Sure. I see you in the corner, and I always pick on people in the corner. All right, he's passing. Would you like to?
Well, one thing that was discussed in our breakout session, and something we talk about in class as part of cultural competency in social work, is even though a member of a vulnerable population will enter into the meeting with the practitioner needs to know how to bridge the gap and challenge or deal with the challenge of the client or patient still being reluctant or being unable to express their needs accurately to get the type of assistance that's required.
Feel free to jump in, panel, if you have any comments. No? Thanks.
I've been listening to your fine comments. We keep abreast of what's going on within the facilities and so on that hire you. And I recently got a call from the Director of Diversity from Cleveland Clinic. And she is a friend of mine. And we worked together in hospice when she was a social worker and I was a nurse in service sector. And now her name is Donna Skurzak. And she was talking about there was concern not among all the interprofessionals related to being culturally aware but not being culturally competent. And so they put in place some simulation exercises within their vast simulation labs and so on in order to address some of that. And Metro Health has put together a cultural competency modules. This was part of the P60 that the College of Urban wrote as a sub-initiative from here. And many of us attend those meetings, and we were involved with assisting with those modules. And I do believe they want to put them online and make them interactive, similar to the way we do City for research. And so that would be available not only for students, but for practicing professionals who may not have had this type of a venue in their educational process. So I just wanted to make that comment. So where you are going and going to be employed, this is important. So I just wanted to bring that up.
And I do want to compliment my group, and that is that one significant point I think that the group made is who's the real expert in this situation? And in this situation, the client, the patient, is really the expert, not the doctors. Just as, like with anyone that you're working with, if someone comes to you and they have a pain, you need to listen, which was also said, with respect to the IRB.
No, I had a question for them. If they don't have a question, that's what I said. Oh, there is somebody to ask? Go ahead. ask. Okay. Now, I just wanted to ask, how many of you have read the book? Okay, I see only 3 hands, 3 or 4 hands. But I think you need to read it because it's terrific. That's when you really get into it deep. And I want, if any one of you can give, what was that moment in the book which really touched you quite a lot? To me, I'll tell you what it is. What touched me a lot was when the scientists took the daughter, Deborah, and one of the sons, Joe, and showed them the cells. I thought that was a great moment because it's education there. I want to bring in education, how valuable education is. You could see the change in that son. He was an angry guy altogether right from the beginning. But when he got into knowing the intricacies behind the research and other things, he was much more different than what he was before. So education makes the person so very different. And I think that's an important element that we need to pick up from this book, that as much as possible, if we can go out and educate people, that would be the best thing that we can do to bring about a change as such. It's an important element. That touched me a lot at that point. There are a couple of other things also, but I would like to hear from you. Do you have any areas where this book touched you very strongly?
I did not read the book as of yet. When I get home, I will order it. But I have to say that that movie ignited a fire in me. I'm going to do more research, and I would like to read that book.
Good, nice to hear that.
That's the purpose of the film, is to complement dialogue, to help initiate dialogue for difficult subjects. And in fact, that was something that I wanted to ask some of you. What was a meaningful moment from the film for you? And if that would help you to read the book, obviously. So any particular moments in the film for you?
In the film or the book, you can comment on anything
yes.
which touched you very strongly.
Yes.
Absolutely, there's a line that's drawn. When you do things to people that they don't agree to have done to them, that's a sharp line. When you abuse the trust of the public or the monies of the public, that's a line. There are people who want to draw lines and say that it's unethical to use non-human animals in research, or if it's justified to use non-human animals, maybe we should be able to use babies as well. So there's a lot of good philosophy and arguments out there to try to make the case that there are ways in which we have to think carefully about where and how to draw lines. And it requires some kind of justification. And clearly none of us wants to say that anything goes. And so if not everything is reasonable or morally permissible, then we need to work to figure out what in fact would be morally permissible. And one of the big things that this book shows is that it's not morally permissible to do things to people without their permission. So I think that's a very sharp line. It's not morally permissible to lie to people. You know, I can't tell you I'm doing an experiment on vitamins when I'm really trying to test out a chemotherapeutic agent to cure cancer. Right? So there are some very, very sharp points that are drawn, and the biggest one has to do with respect for persons. And if we respect other individuals as autonomous beings who have the right to make decisions for themselves in guiding their own future, I think that's a very bright line that gives us a lot of guidance about how we can conduct ourselves.
The more or is it just good for the family that's at stake? And according to the board or whoever viewing the case, they say, hey, you may break this thin line because in the process we're going to save millions of other people's lives versus, hey, this is my parents, this is my kid, they're about to die, and you talking about scientific research experiments.
Right, it's really hard not to be partisan and to prefer our own and to think about our own interests. And I don't have an answer to this question, but this is one question that was raised by Elizabeth Anscombe. Could you justify boiling a baby alive to save 1 million people? And wherever your intuitions lead you in answering that question will give you some insight into how you think about moral issues.
Yeah, if you had listened to Dr. Jeziros's talk on the history of all these things, I mean, it all started in Germany, and there were so many unethical things that they did. The outcome was good. Okay, we learned a lot in science. That's different. But certainly the path they took was wrong. And we are trying to rectify it. It's not the same path now. Times have changed plenty, and it's still not perfect yet. But we need to go forward. But the most important thing, why I hold on education, is that because we need to control our emotions sometimes, because that'll blunt our thinking. That's when we get too emotional, and then we just don't think beyond it. But what I'm saying is education will make us also, you know, in a way where we will think good, argue our cases good, bring it out to the concerned authorities or the concerned boards that this is required. This has to change. It's in the people. I tell you, it's in the hands of the people. They have to bring in that good points, bring it forth to the board or to the government or to the court or wherever, where you can be heard in a very good manner, in a civilized and good manner. That's very important. So that's why education makes it huge, actually speaking. Now, in terms of on boiling, I mean, that's a extreme of boiling a baby.
Deliberately so.
Okay, that's one. But I'm telling you, daily thing, as I'll tell you, because I was a physician, one of my needs to get my degree was I should deliver 20 babies in the labor ward. That's part of my degree requirement. Okay, when I delivered, one of the important aspects when a child is delivered is to drain the umbilical blood, the cord in the umbilical blood. The blood in the umbilical cord. It has to be drained because it contains a lot of antibodies for the child. Now, research has shown that that's the best source of stem cells. Okay, that's a very good source of stem cells. So is there a justification of not draining it, which the child gets 75 ml of blood in that? And is that a good thing just to get some cells, stem cells out of it? It certainly is not. This is not going to taking extremes. These are small things. I mean, we probably don't look into that. We need to look at it. And this doesn't undermine the research work, because if these research works were not there, we wouldn't have gone forward. Research is extremely important. We cannot in any way undermine that. But how well can we carry it out without hurting anybody? It can be done, provided there is a useful dialogue between the two, a constructive dialogue where we think before we really act. And we will present with good points to the boards or the courts or the authorities, whoever concerned.
We have time for one or two more questions. I know we're a little over. It's right, and this is one of those wonderful conundrums when people are so engrossed in the conversation that time passes. So I'm going to say, if you do need to leave, if you would leave, go, exit the back. Oh, we're losing everyone. But can you? Then okay, wait. Go. That's. We do have one more question, and we're going to get that in, and then say goodbye.
So before I came to Cleveland State, I was actually working at Francis Payne Bolton as a research assistant, and one of the projects that I was working on was actually educating patients about how to interact with physicians. And I was just wondering, is there anything else in you all's opinion that we should be helping to educate patients on to get them to better advocate for themselves?
Is your mic on?
Yeah, that's a really big question. I'm not sure that we can answer it in the next couple of minutes. I mean, I think there's a lot that can be done on both sides, both physicians and patients, to be better advocates for themselves. I'm not sure that...
What I've often told my patients to do, and I still do work with patients as a clinician, and I tell them, write it down and put your first priority items, the most important things first. And I also state, if they're intimidated in any way, to take a family member with them, and that's often helpful. To indicate I have these questions, and to tell the person who's checking you in or what have you, and that I have these questions I do want to have answered. And so that they bring this to the physician or the nurse or whoever's going to see that patient attention. And then that's been helpful. And because don't wait till the end after everything else is done. But indicate that you have this and this is a priority.
It's imperative that you tell patients or even family members when they're patients not to be afraid to question, not to be afraid to ask questions, and to do their own research. There are legitimate websites where information can be obtained that will help them in asking quality-informed questions. And these are all things that that even students can assist their patients with, and it will help them when they go into these situations.
Yes, I was going to thank everyone. Thank you to our discussion facilitators, our faculty.